Jack had a great presentation about brand communication the other way around. Welcome.
Ready?
Success.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Holt. I am from Austin, Texas, USA. I'm going to get two questions out of the way right now. First, I do not have any cows in my backyard, although I used to. And the second, I don't wear cowboy boots. Cowboy boots are men's high heels. They are uncomfortable, and they slip and slide, and I'm very clumsy. So let me move on. As hopefully you won't find out that I'm clumsy. So we're going to talk primarily about one brand today. But let me set the table historically first. The 1930s saw a world devastated by the Great Depression. But the people of Germany had been living in horrible conditions for much more than a decade before that. Out of this rubble was rescued the automobile industry on a program called motorization. And I'll try to pronounce the German word, but don't laugh at me, Motorisierung. How'd I do? Thank you very much. The ambition of motorization was to allow the common man to buy a car and drive it across Germany. This was when the earliest part of the Autobahn was built. And the Autobahn, interestingly, was engineered to go around hills and mountains and valleys with a happy side effect of it kept you alert when you're driving. This is in stark contrast to the US interstate system, which if you've never driven it, is just straight as an arrow, busting through every natural obstacle in its way. Very American of the United States to do that. Well, out of the rubble also rose a brand that's persisted almost 100 years. A brand who has 3 of the top 10 best-selling cars in history, each of which is still being produced. A brand that's in the top 20 Global 2000, the top 50 Forbes most valuable brands list. A brand which is so intertwined with human values, those mama bear values that we want our customers to do to defend our brands and be loyal to our brands, that its very name gives it away. Volkswagen, of course. Now, you may also know that Volkswagen and motorization was the first Kickstarter program in modern history. Germans paid in 5 Reichsmarks per week in the hopes that they would have enough money saved up by the time the car was actually produced. And the car, of interest to me since I'm an auto head or motorhead, designed by Ferdinand Porsche, had a rear-mounted, air-cooled engine, air-cooled so it wouldn't freeze in the German winters. It had a rounded hood for aerodynamics because the car was underpowered for efficiency. At the end of the Second World War, when the British owned the factory, they predicted its failure because the car was so ugly and noisy. Well, the brand, I think, and our research has shown, succeeded so well over the past nearly 100 years because it keyed in on 2 core human values. Self-transcendence, the people's car. Remember this idea of a common man, a man with calluses on his hands instead of white gloves, could afford to buy a car and drive it across Germany. And openness to change. This idea of a cheap car, a practical car that everyone could afford was wildly different in the time of nothing but premium luxury cars. They didn't have a Model T in Germany at the time. So being who we are, and I've talked about values a little bit already, and you might be curious, how do values, attitudes, beliefs, behavior, how do they interrelate? How do they intertwine? Let's do what we're all very familiar with here and look at the research. Shalom Schwartz was a social psychologist and built on decades of research on consumer behavior and social psychology. Found that there are 4 key human values that we all share worldwide. They transcend culture, they transcend demographics. We just prioritize them differently. He created a circumplex because, like a wheel or dial, the priority on those values that we each have may change throughout our lives. The priority of the values may change throughout our days. The second thing that was a really important finding for the circumplex is they're in conflict with each other. When you have a large priority on dimension 1, that comes at the expense of dimension 4. So let's go through these one by one, and starting with the fourth dimension. Conservation. This is the traditionalist. This is the person we all know who's had the same breakfast every day for the past 20 years. They are very security conscious. They buy life insurance. It's difficult to budge them from the smallest of their beliefs. They don't tend to move, don't tend to move marriages, don't tend to move jobs. Now, in gentle conflict with conservation is the first dimension, openness to change. You know, this is the nonconformist. This is the person you knew in school, unless it's you, who will try anything one time. The adventurous soul, as it were. The third dimension, self-enhancement. Power and ambition are what this person seeks, and they'll do most anything to get it. They're the people on the Autobahn, which I've not yet driven, driving 300 Ks per hour, flashing their lights, get out of my way. Now, as opposed to gentle conflict, you also see hedonism on that horizontal axis. Hedonism being self-gratification, self-indulgence, sort of like self-enhancement. It's all about me. Well, in ungentle, hard, harsh conflict between for self-enhancement and hedonism are our last and the most important, universally, of self-transcendence. Now, self-transcendence is the benevolent leader, the universalist. Universalism, if you think about it, universalism is more of all for one and one for all. We're all in this together to save the planet. Very tolerant of outsiders, very welcoming to all. Benevolence, and you hear the word benevolent leader, is fiercely loyal to his or her own clan and people. Very intolerant of outsiders, and you could probably say, if you know the rest of the history of Volkswagen, that the self-transcendence was built on that notch of benevolence rather than universalism. Well, let's put this circumplex all together now and think about flash forwarding to the future for where VW is now. Have they upheld these core values of self-transcendence and openness to change, or have they wavered? What I did was I went to VW's marketing and took a look at what I call the chocolate truffles of marketing, the tagline. Chocolate truffles are built with so much complex, delicious flavor and condensed. They're just like a tagline. So let's run through these kind of quickly and tell me what you think. Progress. Defies convention. Breaking the mold. Now, I'm tasting openness to change in these little truffles from VW, and I suspect you are too. VW has moved into the more conventional side of some marketing for cars like the Passat and the Jetta, trying to appeal to a little larger segment. And remember I told you they're kind of in gentle conflict with openness to change. I wonder how BMW, their arch rival, might stack up though. So with a refresher on the circumplex, where do you all think BMW's truffles will fall? Most powerful. Born to compete. front runner. Passion wins. I'm getting a lot of that self-enhancement, power, ambition, get out of my way. Well, this is what we think, this is what I think. What does the rest of the world think about VW's marketing? What is the world saying over social media, over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, about VW's efforts to promote and to market and uphold self-transcendence and openness to change? 84% of the people talking about the nameplates Golf, GTI, and the Beetle come back as nonconformist, our terminology at Mattr, for openness to change. Now this was done without polls, completely passively, and if you have questions, please get with me or Erica, who's my colleague in the audience. I wonder what some other brands would do, so I wanted to go to IIeX's business partner website and just look through some more little truffles that we have, little taste-sized bits of marketing. Ricoh, Imagine and Change, great for openness. Johnson & Johnson, world leader in this, they really know how to do it right. Their credo values state to serve the needs and well-being of our customers first. Heineken's awesome. Heineken, hugely nonconformist, openness to change. If you've seen their marketing, they're trying to do everything they can to make you feel more uncomfortable and to do different things and to reach outside of your comfort zone. Well, if you're thinking about your own personal brand or your company's brand or the brands within your company or even your clients' brands, you might wonder how to get started. For your own brand, you don't really need to spend a ton of money on a professional project. You can do this yourself. Second, stay out of the conflict of self-transcendence and self-enhancement. When VW launched the Phaeton, which was a premium luxury car, it really failed miserably. When I think about spending $80,000 on a luxury car, I'm thinking about a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz or an Audi A8. And last, stay consistent. Unless your market is changing dramatically, you could use Apple as a really good use case for this. If you think about their 1984 commercial for the Macintosh, very open to change, nonconformist. They were the anti-IBM, anti-Microsoft at the time. But then they moved more into this self-indulgent, hedonistic type category of making devices that feel good and look good and make you look good when you're using one of them. Thank you very much.
Questions to Jack? Yes, over there.
Hi, I'm Ramon Campos from P&G Lambda House. So as you were talking with Volkswagen, did you have a chance to understand how they look into the positioning of some other brands like Porsche, Lamborghini, Audi? Do they do that consciously in terms of in that quadrant managing to cover the four quadrants?
I'm sorry, with the echo, I couldn't understand any of that.
Volkswagen owns Porsche, Lamborghini. Have you had a chance to talk with them about how intentionally they're trying to cover the four quadrants of that?
So are you asking how some of the other brands, their competitors like Porsche and BMW did? I did BMW, and BMW returns as, the question was, how have some of VW's competitors done on the wheel through the Mattr
No,
platform?
actually, their own brands. I mean, Porsche is owned by Volkswagen, Lamborghini is owned by Volkswagen, Audi is owned by Volkswagen,
yeah.
Seat, Skoda.
Yeah. Okay. So the brands within the companies of VW, like Audi and so forth? No, I didn't do Audi. I did do BMW, however. And BMW comes back as the people are highly price insensitive. which are one of our ways of tracking that self-enhancement. They don't care what it costs, they're going to get it. And I think they came back at 20 points lower on the nonconformism or nonconformity and openness to change.
One other question. Sorry, what was your house? Just, okay, Lambda.
Lambda. Any pies out there want to answer some questions?
No pie questions? Good. Yeah.
Industry.
So is the question, do I think that these four categories are
Yeah.
exhaustive in the...
In terms of defining different types of brand personalities, no matter what the category is.
There's a lot inside of each of those dimensions that I didn't show, nor did I talk about, just to keep it simple for the presentation. I've got all the research on it if you'd like to see. It's very, very interesting research. So yes, to answer your question, yes. I think that if you look at the things which drive your behavior and drive your beliefs, stay consistent throughout cultures and demographics. I mean, we see at Mattr, we see the companies who are taking on the 20% of market segment that they've not yet tried to address because they were the 20%. And yet we can smooth over with the values and see the kind of content they would respond to know the kind of media that they're reading they would respond to, the kind of copy they would respond to. Does that answer your question well enough?
Thank you, Jack.